Hello and welcome back to the We Ball Podcast. After a glorious week one of college football, the NFL is upon us, and that means it's time to take a look at some ballers and fallers from college football week one, going into the start of my draft season, at least. This is my favorite time of year. Everything's getting started, and I can start talking about the guys that I've known about all summer that none of you have cared about. So it's time to get rolling. Tyler, how we doing?
I'm doing great. Really excited for NFL season to kick off. As we're recording this, NFL season starts tomorrow on Thursday. We've got Chiefs Lions, which just keeps getting weirder because of the amount of players who might not play. But there were a lot of really good players playing on Saturday in college football and throughout the entire weekend. So we got to highlight some of them, maybe talk about some guys who struggled. Obviously, it's week one. We don't have, nobody had tape on any of these guys playing this year. This isn't something that we're saying like, oh, all of these guys are bad. All of these guys that we're pointing out are really good players, just people who can step it up the following week. And like we said, it's a week to week thing. And we're really excited to talk about some guys.
All right, we're going to start off with our ballers. Those are guys whose stock went up or we really liked this week, or they kind of launched themselves into a new area, a new conversation when it comes to the NFL draft or even just college football in general. I'm going to start us off with Colorado as a whole, but more specifically in the sense of the draft, Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders looked like an NFL quarterback. He looked like a man amongst boys. He was super smooth, super cerebral, made his processing way quicker than he did even at Jackson State. I've watched his tape at Jackson State. I watched him versus FAMU, and he was a lot smoother versus TCU, which is impressive in your first game at a higher level. So I'm really excited to see if he can keep this up all season. I think he will be able to keep this up all season, but he's going to be in the conversation if he keeps playing like this of going in, that second round, maybe even creeping into the first. So it was really fun to see that Colorado team. And there's more people on that team that we have to talk about, but Shedeur Sanders definitely is the story going into week two.
Yeah, I think Shedeur just absolutely balled out. Another guy, obviously, Travis Hunter. That dude looks just as advertised, if not better. The fact that he is their number one receiver and their number one corner, and he plays both positions so well and so smart. There was no adjustment period for like any of these players on this team. Shedeur Sanders, I vividly remember underthrowing one deep ball, and then the rest of the game, it was just like calm, cool, collected in the pocket, dropping balls on the money. Like this dude had no issues whatsoever. And the fact that he went from the FCS and like an HBCU to playing in an FBS game against a team that obviously lost a lot of players, but still has a lot of good ones in TCU and just had no adjustment period whatsoever, was just balling right away. It says so much for the work that Deion is doing, because a lot of people just see him as Deion Sanders, the face. But the fact that he and this coaching staff have put this confidence into these players and now they're balling out and like they're off and running immediately, especially Shedeur Sanders, somebody who, had to rise up to being able to face these defenses that are on a completely other level. And he just did it so well. That whole team is a riser, but because it's primarily NFL draft based, I think Shedeur Sanders is right on the money.
And I think Shedeur Sanders, with all this hype, being Deion's son, being this leader on the team that Deion says he is, that we've seen, the way he acts, the way he composes himself, and the way that him and Travis Hunter are like cool to like they vlog, they have TikToks, they do all this stuff. I think him and another guy we're going to talk about are slowly going to become America's quarterback during this draft cycle. And that other guy is Riley Leonard. He's this, kind of baby-faced assassin, but he's hitting MJ shrugs. He's asking for extensions on papers. Like everything you could do to gain a little bit of a media reputation, the kid's doing, and he's balling on the field. He wasn't the best I've seen him because I watched his tape from last year, but he made a bunch of plays and he was still really, really good against Clemson in a big game. So shout out to Riley Leonard because he killed it.
Yeah, I think obviously the talent disparity between teams like Duke and Clemson is going to be pretty big. So you're not really looking for a quarterback to single-handedly like ball out and have a perfect game because it's just not going to happen when you're playing a team that has that many NFL talents on defense. So you're looking for those one-off plays and those kind of big plays. And Riley Leonard made like three or four of them this game that you were like, wow. And, multiple of them were on the ground, but still, it's just clear that this kid's got something. And like you said, he's kind of becoming like America's quarterback in a way. Everyone's rooting for him. And the fact that we're 1 week into college football and we already have all of these personal brands building, I think, is something that's really exciting. And we're seeing in the name of NIL and the fact that these guys like Shadur Sanders can go vlog, the entire process leading up to their game, can vlog after the game. And now we're seeing everyone just kind of walk through the process. Riley Leonard asking for the extension on the paper. These kind of things are what make college football so fun. So seeing so many of them in week one on top of these guys already balling is super cool.
And we talked about that Clemson Duke game. I have to talk about one of my guys who I've been very vocal. He is a first round pick at the safety position, and that is one Andrew Makuba, Uncle Drew, as he is known. Nicknames make you a better player. I don't make the rules. But Andrew Makuba balled. Like, he was very, very good. He was the leader of that defense. He was flying around. He was making plays. He was really one of two or three guys who was giving Riley Leonard problems. There was a clear awareness of Andrew Makuba on every play. When you watch Riley Leonard throw the ball, I already watched the A22 on that game in a class where the professor wasn't speaking very soundly, so I just kind of moved on. But he's a dog. You're not going to stop him. You have to avoid him. He can do that at the NFL level. I think he is like going to be one of the guys at the safety position to kind of revitalize that position because it feels kind of dead in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird because so many of the teams in the league run Fangio stuff, and safeties are the primary. Like, that's what you need more than anything. It's not corners. It's not as much your front four. It's those safeties. And the fact that we still, I feel like we haven't had a new safety name in quite a long time. And I feel like Andrew Makuba can be that guy because the number one thing you see with him is he flies the football. And with guys who fly the football, oftentimes you see them over pursue, and it's like he isn't doing that all that often. Like, so many times he's in the right place. The fumble right before the end of the half, you're like,
He wanted to house it.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, he's not on the screen right now. And then he pops up like 0.1 seconds later and he's across the field, like about to possibly return this thing. The dude is everywhere. And the fact that he's able to combine that timing with like the speed and have the match of physical talent and cerebral skill as a player who like is in his first game of his like draft eligible season, really exciting to watch. I think we can move on to a guy I really want to talk about because this is somebody who obviously is a Knoll. I had to bring him up. And he knows what time it is because the man was balling out there with an Apple Watch on, which made it even that much more funny. It's Keon Coleman. I mean, I think me and Luke, we talked about this a bunch. I feel like there's episodes where we brought him up. This was somebody that we felt like was going to ball, especially in the Florida State offense, where like they already had a really good offense last year, but we're kind of missing a number one. Like Johnny Wilson is somebody who struggled, and we have him a bit on the fallers list because those drops still seem to be an issue. But we knew that if they got like a true number one, that guy would get the ball a ton because Johnny Wilson got it a ton last season. Pokey Wilson got it a ton last season. And I think that Keon Coleman has become that guy already. 3 touchdowns, 2 of them were mossing people, and then another one is just him taking a slant to the house and just straight up getting by people. And you watch that first touchdown, you're like, oh yeah, he's the shifty receiver. Johnny Wilson's the big receiver. I like this dynamic they have. And then they throw like 2 fades to Keon Coleman, and you're like, oh yeah, he's also 6'4" and has insane ball skills. So it's like, what skills does he not have? And on a team where they're going to be throwing the ball a lot and they have a really good offense, I think he's in for a heck of a year. Attention fantasy football fanatics, as draft season approaches, don't neglect the most important draft pick of all, your game balls. We all know how injuries can ruin a season, so let MANSCAPED take care of that Reggie Bush of yours with their skin-safe technology. That should guarantee you to have a smooth ride into the playoffs. The leaders in the below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0, and it's time for you to do the same. Join the 9 million men around the world who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping when you use code WEBALL. We all know that confidence is the biggest thing, whether it comes to recording a podcast, interviewing professional athletes, playing on the field, or even trimming below the waist. And for that last one, Manscaped has helped out tremendously with their Performance Package 4.0. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and even a travel bag. Slotted at quarterback, we've got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This spaceship is here to guide you on your journey to trim your body, balls, and even your A-gap. This 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor, a new multifunction on off switch that can engage in a travel lock, and is even waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight, brighter than Bryce Young's future in the end zone. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, the ultimate flex. Watch it run through your ear and nose hairs like Aaron Donald runs through to sack your favorite quarterback. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. This ear and nose hair trimmer provides proprietary skin safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those sensitive ear and nose holes. Don't forget to use the Crop Preserver ball deodorant and the Crop Reviver to help your little bench warmers be on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to the Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. So who's the commissioner now? Get 20% off plus free shipping with code WEBALL at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code WEBALL, WEBALL, at manscaped.com. It's time to put the PP back in PPR and get a grip on your pigskin this season with Manscaped.
Yeah, it was definitely fun to watch him. I mean, I talked about the rumor going around college football with him and Payne Thorne and Jaden Reed. But he's in a system that's going to showcase him and not in a Mel Tucker system. So like he's going to skyrocket. It's going to happen. We all kind of knew it was going to happen, but to see it this early, being a late transfer, it's honestly just super impressive. I'm going to talk about a little bit of a duo here because the rest of their team was like actually atrocious. Like I don't think I've seen a more despondent effort on the offensive side of the ball than that in a really long time. That offensive line was it was like 2018 New York Giants level of bad. And that is Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette. Legette went off. He had more yards this weekend than he did all of last season. And he's like clearly going to be the number 2 option on that team. There's no more Josh Van. There's no more like question mark at that number 2. They didn't even use Nick Harbor because they didn't have time. They had to have somebody in blocking that entire game. But Rattler proved that he can do it in a not perfect situation. Like that's always been the thing because Oklahoma was perfect and he was 5-0 and still lost his starting role. And then, he wasn't good at the beginning of last season because South Carolina wasn't perfect. And then they got really good and they all kind of came together and they started to win games and he was really good. But this was a bad showing by the rest of the South Carolina team. And Spencer Rattler went out there and did his thing, was really good. I mean, the stats back it up that he was like on the money all night. It was impressive to get sacked 9 times. I think maybe 2 of those sacks are on him. Like people are saying 5 of those sacks are on him. That's a lie. You're just coping. Spencer Rattler looked really good. And I think you're going to really have to watch with Spencer Rattler because you're not going to want to watch him. You're going to have to watch him type thing because of that offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be hard at times because of the fact that our offensive line just wasn't doing much up front to really stop what was happening in front of them. But like you said, he really did not have a bad game under pressure, and that's a big thing for college quarterbacks. Is a lot of them struggle under pressure. I mean, we had multiple quarterbacks come out this year that went very high in the NFL draft, and we don't really know how they deal with pressure quite yet. So the fact that we're seeing Spencer Rattler at least be somewhat composed is a big thing. I feel like we can kind of cover these last two together because they're both quarterbacks. They're both really exciting players and guys that Luke and I were both high on just because these are guys who sling it and they're guys who are continuing to sling it. It's Michael Pratt and it's Jackson Dart. I think I'm going to let you kind of take the lead on these two because I know that they were first year guys. And as much as I watched them and was excited to see them, I know you have some like definite observations and stuff that you're really excited about. So feel free to cook with these two.
Okay, first of all, they play each other this weekend on the 9th. So in a few days,
That's
they
exciting.
play each other. That's fun. I like that.
So
I like that
exciting.
they're both risers right now or ballers. My bad. Forgot we have fun names for things. I think that Jackson Dart has a lot of the makings of an NFL quarterback. I think he has no glue. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like you threw a bunch of stuff in a box, but you didn't like put it in neatly, so you got a little bit less room in the box because everything's just kind of piled up. Like you got to kind of get things situated in there. Lane Kiffin's pretty good at figuring those things out. It's something he's been good at throughout his career. So hopefully more time, a little bit of vote of confidence because there are two other really good quarterbacks on that team sitting behind him in Spencer Sanders and what's the last kid's name? Doesn't matter. I really don't care.
It's not coming to me. Keep going.
Okay. Well, then you go on the other side, right? You go to Pratty, baby. You go to Krabby Pratty. You know what I'm saying? You go look at Michael Pratt, and he's got all the glue. Everything he does is together. You just got to take him to the next level. You got to rise him to the next station. You got to kind of put him up a tier. He's got to take that jump, that leap that we like to see quarterbacks take in their draft eligible years. And he was really good, but I'm pretty sure it was like South Alabama that they played. It's not like crazy impressive win. Ole Miss, on the other hand, will be a very fun outing for him. And then his wide receiver, Fat Watts, which is his actual name, Phat Watts. But yeah, I think two high ceiling guys, one who shows that high ceiling very often, but doesn't show that consistency, and one who shows that consistency, but needs to take that jump to the next level, both showed out this week and showed signs of taking the next step towards what we need to see them do to be really good.
Yeah, and especially on Dart, I think you're so right with him just not having the glue. It's like when you order something and you know that it needs to be built, but you keep kind of putting it off and you're like, yeah, all the stuff's there. I'm going to keep it sitting in this box and we're going to get it done. And he just like slowly keeps putting the pieces together. And if he just like puts a couple more of them together, you've got your nice like IKEA chair set up. But like he needs to, just kind of, it needs to all come together at once. And at least for a week, it looks like it's moving in that direction. As for a guy who's kind of in a similar spot, I know we don't look at him as this because we look at him as a perfect prospect. I'm going to move on to our fallers. And this one's a bit of it's not a real faller because we know how good of a player he is. But I think that there's a little bit of cause for concern with Caleb Williams. And I don't mean this in a major way. I just mean that, yes, the out of structure stuff is phenomenal. We know it's great. We know it's the best we've seen since Patrick Mahomes. We know that this is somebody who just won the Heisman and is the favorite to go do it again. He's that guy. We know this. But I think it's not as much a faller as we just need to see more development on the in structure stuff. When we see the touchdown, he's rolling out, he's juking out defenders left and right. None of this had to happen if you threw it to the out that was wide open on the sideline. You probably score that way too. We just don't know the validity of how much that stuff is going to work in the NFL. And obviously we said the same thing about Mahomes. Mahomes fell a bunch and then he gets to the league and he's doing that for 3 years. And now he's also probably one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL. And it just took time for both of those to click. Mahomes just had his best season as a pro, potentially, at all. But I think with Caleb Williams, we just want to see a couple more flashes of the mental game and outthinking the opponent rather than it just being the on the fly stuff. Great player, obviously. Also, we got to mention it, the fact that he's like, oh, I might stay if I don't like the team that's going to draft me. Come on.
I'm getting a little too much high school bully in a sitcom from him right now. Like, I'm just a little bit too much of it. Like, he's the quarterback in the show that you're not supposed to like and you're supposed to root for the other guy. Right now, Drake May is that other guy. But like Caleb, just be a normal NFL player, bro. Just like do the thing that everyone else does. Kyler Murray legit had the option to be a top pick in 2 sports. I'm just like, yeah, nah, I'm not doing it. And we were all like, wait, like for real, you're not even gonna like consider it and see who drafts you? And he's like, nah, I'm not gonna play football. And
yeah,
like, okay, just do it, just commit, just
I don't know why, as Caleb Williams, in a year where, I mean, I get it, you pretty much have the number 1 pick locked up, but why would you do anything to potentially change that? I understand it's so much about the situation, but the thing with the NFL is we've kind of learned so many of these situations change in a big way year to year. Like, you might go to a team that's really bad. Like one of these teams might, for instance, the Cardinals or maybe the Rams are bad and fall and like completely fall off because they've got a lot of guys who are injured. Cooper Kupp just got ruled out for week 1. Stafford's elbow, I think, is still messed up. What if it's the Rams? Are you really going to turn down the opportunity to go play with Sean McVay just because they were bad the year before? Like, no. Like if it's the Cardinals, like who's saying that offensive system that they're running isn't going to be really good? They brought in other Eagles.
It's just not going to work with Josh Dobbs. Like,
yeah, like, and there's a big difference. Like, once they get you, they're going, like, if they know they have the number 1 pick, they're going to spend money. Like, these situations just change so much year to year that I don't get why you would say it right now before the season is even started. Hey, there are definitely, because he wouldn't say that if there were teams he had in mind, right? If there weren't teams he had in mind right now that he's thinking. I guarantee you there's a team that he knows is going to be bad, probably Arizona, and he's like, yeah, I really don't want to play there. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me because of the fact that this season hasn't even started. You have no clue how any of this was going to turn out. Nobody wanted to play for the Brian Flores Dolphins at the beginning of the year when they were 0-7 that one year. And then they won 5 of their last 9, and they went out and they signed a bunch of free agents because everyone was like, this team's like, the fact that they had that bad of a roster and they were that well coached, like, okay, Jonathan Gannon's a little corny. You're telling me he can't go do that? Like,
yeah, bro.
I don't get it at all.
Listen, Michael Scott sold the most paper of any Dunder Mifflin branch, but he was corny and he was a weirdo. It doesn't mean he's bad.
Exactly.
I'm just saying. Moving on, this is probably my biggest faller. Just Georgia in general. Like, they're still a very good team, but that was not great. Like, I watched that and I was like, maybe Stetson Bennett did make a little bit of a difference, even though they were like undefeated with Daniels before that, but that's it's irrelevant. Like, Beck wasn't good, and the offense looked ugly. They didn't look smooth like they normally do. Brock Bowers is like very clearly the only guy getting play, and he's the only guy getting attention from the defense. It just especially the first half, man. I'm concerned for Georgia, and if I'm a Michigan who had a good week 1 without their head coach, and Alabama who might be figuring out their quarterback situation, same thing with Ohio State, I'm a little bit more hopeful. I'm putting the pedal to the metal a little bit earlier this season to try and really stake my claim as the best team in college football early.
I think you're missing a team, but it's fine. We'll let that slide.
I only talk about teams who have secondaries.
Hey, the secondary is improving.
We're talking about
Look at the second half.
They have a really bad secondary.
Their secondary needs some work with, hey, the second half, they allowed 7 points and it was a garbage time touchdown. So let's look at times where the teams had to pass. Maybe they're getting better. Whatever. Fine. We'll move on to another team that is, was at part of the top of the college football world. It's Clemson. We saw, hey, they might be on the way up. They bring in Garrett Riley. This defense is going to be really good. Then they put up, 7 points against Duke? Like, what was the
I
what was
don't
the
think they
number?
put up 7 points.
They
There's
put
no
up
way they
seven
put
like
up
late in the
7.
fourth quarter, right?
I don't think they put up only 7 points. I think that's wrong.
They put
I'm.
up 7 points.
Did they actually?
They put up 7 points on Duke.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that
and
was
we're not just
really bad.
this isn't for the bit. We genuinely were unsure just because yeah, the offense looks really bad. I think Cade Klubnik is somebody that like we were kind of excited to watch play in a Garrett Riley system because we saw how good Max Duggan played last year, and we obviously were not super high on Max Duggan, but like that offense is supposed to be insane, and it was insane last year, but it just seems like it seems like Garrett Riley does not have, full control of the wheel when it comes to the offense because there's just so much stuff there that isn't his creativity. It isn't his play calls that we saw last year. Is it a lack of confidence in maybe the unit he has? Maybe. Is it Dabo kind of taking some control and running the stuff that he's always ran?
Yes.
Probably. But like, there's just a lot of, we should be a lot more excited for a Clemson offense. And like we said, they were playing a Duke team that obviously has some really good players, but compared to Clemson, they're bereft of talent. And the fact that Duke held them to 7 points, there's some blame to go around on the offensive side of the ball. With that being said, I know you have one more left. You can touch on Clemson's offense as well if you want to, but I know that you have one more left, and this is kind of your personal gripe. So I'll make
Listen,
sure to let you cook on this one.
real quick. Cade Klubnik, let's not act like this kid's a slouch. Like this kid was the number 2 recruit for quarterbacks coming out of high school, behind only Drew Ayler, who, hey, Drew Ayler looked pretty nice this weekend. Finally doing stuff at Penn State after sitting behind Sean Clifford, which is disgusting. But he was the 13th player in a class that had these, Travis Hunter, Luther Burden, like all these dogs, like these guys who are really good, Harold Perkins, like these are some big names. And he was up there in that ranking. And we're making him look like a 3-star quarterback, like a guy who made the jump from Texas A&M as a backup who got a little bit of play and now is trying to make a name for himself somewhere. Like that's what he looks like right now. This guy was supposed to be like the dude. Like he was supposed to be the heir apparent. And he looks not great at football. I mean, he hit some throws that were impressive and his wide receivers dropped them. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt that I don't think this is on him. I think this is on Dabo, and I think this is on the rest of that offense. But my own personal gripe, it's disgusting. All right. We should not have this in our society. It is the Big Ten on CBS. Probably the worst decision ever. Hearing that music that I associated with the SEC from the time I was born until now play behind like an Iowa Northwestern trailer makes me want to vomit. And I go to Rutgers, and seeing Rutgers promos with the Big Ten music or with the CBS music and the SEC music that has been the sound of my childhood as an Alabama fan was like scarring. Like I feel like I should file a lawsuit against CBS for that. And that is how we're going to wrap this podcast up. I'm Luke Crummage. Joining me, as always, is Tyler DeSena. We thank you for listening, watching, however you are consuming the information that we are putting into your sweet ears. Thank you, and have a good one. We ball.